The sharp, derisive laugh of a young woman pierced the hushed ambience of the first-class cabin. "Oh, do they really just let the staff roam into premium seating these days?" she sneered, her gaze fixed on Eleanor Vance. Without a moment's hesitation, she glided into seat 7A, Eleanor's assigned spot, and casually dropped her designer handbag. Eleanor remained rooted to the ground, her boarding pass clutched firmly in her hand. "Excuse me," she began, her voice soft but resolute. "That's my seat." The woman smirked, leaning back indolently. "Perhaps try to save up a few more paychecks next time, Nana." Nearby travelers shifted uncomfortably. A flight attendant glanced nervously between the two, but then something shifted. The captain himself appeared, his eyes locking onto Eleanor's elegant locket, and a sudden hush fell over the entire cabin. "Is there an issue here?" His voice was calm, yet everyone sensed the gravity of the moment. This wasn't merely about a seat, it was a profound lesson in reverence, influence, and quiet resilience. What transpires next? Subscribe to True Life Narratives to witness the unfolding drama. The atmosphere in the cabin grew heavier with each passing second. Eleanor stood motionless near the galley, every muscle taut, her ticket held tightly in her grip. The low murmur of conversations, the faint clinking of glassware, and the gentle whoosh of the air system all faded into the background. Instead, only the memory of the young woman's cutting words remained, along with a subtle ache in Eleanor's legs as she fought to suppress a tremor. Behind her, the young woman was sprawled luxuriously across 7A, head tilted back, casually scrolling through her phone. Other passengers observed, some with interest, others with impatience. A few actively avoided Eleanor's gaze, pretending the incident hadn't occurred. The attendant had disappeared, promising to resolve the situation. But Eleanor felt the unwelcome chill of being marginalized. The seconds stretched into an eternity. Eleanor looked down at her hands. How many times had she found herself in this position, expected to recede, to yield, to swallow her dignity? Her thoughts drifted to the early days, working alongside her late husband, envisioning a future where she would never have to apologize for her very existence. Yet, time and again, individuals like that girl reminded her how swiftly one's self-worth could be challenged. Suddenly, footsteps echoed in the narrow aisle. The flight attendant returned, face resolute, a supervisor in tow. Both men glanced at Eleanor, then at the young woman in 7A. "Is there a problem?" the supervisor inquired, his voice low but tinged with irritation. "Yes," Eleanor stated simply. "I have a boarding pass for 7A. She's in my seat." The young woman didn't even bother to look up from her phone. "She must be mistaken," she declared a little too loudly. "This is my seat. I was here first." The attendant attempted a strained smile. "Madam, may we see your boarding pass, please?" The girl made a production of rummaging through her handbag, rolling her eyes. She quickly flashed her pass, deliberately covering the seat number with her finger. "That's seat 12C, the supervisor stated. The girl's eyes narrowed. "Well, that can't be right. I was told to sit here." A ripple of unease spread among the nearby passengers. Some began to murmur. Eleanor stood firm, refusing to yield. The supervisor sighed. "Madam, you need to move to your assigned seat." But the girl crossed her arms stubbornly. "Why are you taking her side? You don't know what truly happened. Perhaps she's confused." A man in a sharp suit leaned over from across the aisle, his voice cutting through the tension. "We all witnessed what transpired. She has the correct seat." The girl glared at him, but the tension only intensified. The attendant's voice was now firmer. "Madam, we need to resolve this or the aircraft cannot depart." For a moment, Eleanor felt the impulse to walk away, to preserve the peace, as she had done countless times before. But then, in her mind's eye, she saw her husband's hand resting over hers, the memory of his unwavering belief in her. She straightened her posture. "I'm not moving," she stated quietly, more to herself than anyone else. The supervisor sighed again, clearly keen to avert a scene. He stepped closer to the girl. "You need to proceed to your assigned seat now." The girl huffed, dramatically tossing her hair. "Fine, if that's how you intend to treat paying customers." She snatched her handbag and stomped down the aisle, but not before shooting Eleanor a final, defiant glare, as if daring her to gloat. Yet, Eleanor felt no triumph, only a deep weariness. She moved into 7A, her legs aching as she settled into the seat. The nearby passengers returned to their magazines, their discussions, their devices. But the atmosphere had irrevocably shifted. There was a new sense of fatigue, a curious blend of intrigue and deference. She pressed the locket at her throat between her fingers, finding solace in its familiar weight. She recalled the day her husband had given it to her, his words echoing, "It's more than metal. It's your rightful place." Across the aisle, an older woman nodded at her with a gentle smile. Eleanor returned the nod, grateful for even the slightest gesture of camaraderie. As the aircraft prepared for departure, the supervisor passed by again, his voice now softer. "Is there anything you require, Miss Vance?" "No, thank you," she replied, her voice calm but assured. "I'm fine." He paused, a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. "I apologize for the inconvenience." Eleanor nodded. "It occurs more often than you'd think." He hesitated, then moved on. The plane vibrated, the engines roared to life, and Eleanor allowed herself to breathe. Passengers maintained their distance, and though no one uttered a word, Eleanor felt the weight of their gazes. She retrieved a book, attempting to immerse herself in its narrative. An hour into the flight, the young woman reappeared from the rear of the plane, making her way up the aisle towards the lavatory. As she passed, she paused, leaning close to Eleanor. "You believe you've triumphed, don't you?" she whispered, her eyes sharp. "But people like you never belong up here." Eleanor met her gaze evenly. "Everyone has a place. Today, my place is here." The girl chuckled under her breath and continued on, but her voice lingered, cutting deeper than any cold shoulder. Later, as beverages were served, the flight attendant approached Eleanor with a tray. "Complimentary champagne, Miss Vance," he announced, his tone now noticeably more respectful. "Thank you," Eleanor responded, her words calm, though her heart still pounded. The man in the suit across the aisle raised his glass in her direction. "To upholding your principles," he said quietly. Eleanor managed a small smile. "To not allowing the world to dictate our position." There was a quiet moment of mutual recognition between them, a sense of shared understanding that transcended the barriers of age, background, and social standing. As the hours passed, the cabin grew quieter. But then, a stir at the front of the aircraft drew everyone's attention. The captain had emerged from the cockpit, tall and authoritative, surveying the cabin. His eyes landed on Eleanor, and something in his expression shifted. He approached, the room falling silent around him. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, his voice easily carrying through the quiet. The flight attendant awkwardly recounted the earlier disagreement. The captain's gaze settled on Eleanor's locket. "Miss Vance," his voice softened. "Welcome aboard. Your son sends his regards." A ripple spread through the cabin. People straightened, curiosity and realization mixing in their eyes. The young woman returning from the lavatory stopped dead in her tracks. Her face drained of color. "Wait, her son?" she stammered. The captain then addressed the cabin. "This is the mother of our airline's owner. I expect all passengers to treat each other with the utmost respect." He turned to Eleanor, offering a respectful nod. "It is an honor to have you with us, Miss Vance." The tension immediately dissipated. The young woman's bravado crumbled, replaced by disbelief, then acute humiliation. Passengers whispered, some glancing at the young woman with newfound disapproval. The attendant, clearly embarrassed, hovered nearby, eager to atone. The girl's hands trembled as she gripped the seat in front of her, shrinking from the unwanted attention. No one rushed to her defense now. For the remainder of the flight, Eleanor was left in peace. The power dynamic had irrevocably shifted. The once arrogant girl kept her head down, every glance from other passengers a silent condemnation. As the plane began its descent, the young woman hurried to gather her belongings, her confidence utterly gone. No more smug smiles, only a desperate desire to vanish. The landing was smooth. As passengers disembarked, a few paused to offer Eleanor a nod or a kind word. The captain stood at the exit, shaking her hand. "Thank you, Miss Vance. You reminded us all of something crucial today." The young woman attempted to slip past, eyes averted, but the captain gently stopped her. "Miss, next time remember, every seat holds a narrative, and every individual possesses inherent worth." Eleanor stepped into the bright light of the terminal, her heart lighter. She had stood her ground. She had preserved her dignity. And in the end, the world, if only for a fleeting moment, had been transformed. As Eleanor entered the bustling terminal, sunlight streamed across the floor, casting elongated shadows behind her. She moved through the throng, not with arrogance or anger, but with a quiet conviction she hadn't experienced in years. The world around her remained the same, impatient, hurried, filled with minor injustices. But something within her had shifted. For the first time in a long while, she realized she didn't need to raise her voice to be recognized. Every step was a reminder, Dignity is not a privilege to be granted or revoked. It is something you carry, regardless of your location. The locket at her neck warmed against her skin, a silent assurance that her story mattered. Across the terminal, she caught the eye of a young woman observing, uncertainty and curiosity mingling in her gaze. Eleanor offered a gentle nod, a silent message that respect could originate anywhere, with anyone. In that brief exchange, a subtle change took root, one that might ripple further than anyone could foresee. If this story resonated with you, show your appreciation by liking, sharing, and subscribing to True Life Narratives. Every story counts.